Something is going on. Oh, hi, it's Bernita, the host, the founder of SWAT, the survivor in me that helps me advocate for us.
Don't be a silent victim. When the
Okay,
hitting
guys, we're trying to
starts,
figure
get
this
you a
out.
paper trail by calling the police.
So our video will not work. So, nevertheless, we're going to go right into I am Bernita. So, I am Bernita Howard, the host, the founder of SWAT. I have tonight with me Michaela and Miss Rhonda. We're bringing awareness on domestic violence, no longer silent, educating, spreading awareness, and teaching about prevention. On tonight, I'm going to let the ladies introduce who they are. So, Miss Rhonda, can you introduce yourself to our guests?
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Rhonda Nixon, and I'm the owner and operator of Reawakening LLC. And it's a mentoring group that mentors young girls, and it focuses on mentoring, consulting, as well as life coaching.
Hi, my name is Michaela McNeil. I'm the CEO and founder of the Butterfly Effect for domestic violence victims and survivors. I provide peer to peer support. I guide men and women to resources in their area. And I also do a lot of community work. Domestic violence is important to me because I felt alone during my domestic violence situation. So I want to make sure that other people know they're not alone.
For some reason, it's like a lag and something's going on. But nevertheless, we're gonna push through this. Um, the technical difficulties we can get through is the amount of just logging out, logging back on. Hey, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this show, um, and spread awareness. That's what we're here for. And so, to our viewers, just push through with us because hey, we coming through. We're no longer silent. So we're gonna come through. We're gonna tell our stories. We're gonna help you help you. That's what we're here to do tonight. So let's jump right into it. Domestic violence. Who wants to answer what is domestic violence?
I can
Either
do
one.
it.
Okay.
Domestic violence. There's a lot of different forms of domestic violence. It's not just physical. It's verbal, mental, sexual, spiritual, and it's where your partner or it could be a family member is belittling you, putting their hands on you, calling you names, withholding you from money, kind of diminishing you, making you feel less than. That's their goal, um, to kind of have that power and control over you, and make you feel like you don't have any choice or you don't have any options. But we're here today to tell you that you do, and you're not alone, and you can get out of those situations.
Exactly. Um, so I'm glad you said that you pointed out power and control because a abuser, when they lose their power or they lose their control, or they feel like they're losing it, that's where the abuse come in. There is a power and control will that is, people Google everything. Google the power and control will. You'll be so surprised that what you consider not abuse, that's really abusive. Um, and it don't matter. It could be as she stated, a family member. It could be your leader. If they cannot have power and control over you, they manipulate you. That's a form of abuse. So let's talk about the potential signs that Miss Rhonda, let's talk about that, like the potential signs that sometimes the abusers have that we overlook.
Oh, wow. Okay. So one of the signs is really they are very possessive. They try to control everywhere you go, who you monitor, who you talk to on the phone, monitor what you wear, monitor or control um, where you be, um, control your money. So any a person that's controlling that's a sign. That's a red flag. Flag when they say flag on the play, that's a flag on the play. Because and I think that a lot of people or women seem to think that's a way of showing love, but that's not. You and if you want the example of love, that's First Corinthians 13, right? This says love is patient, love is kind. Um, Also, a love does not hurt, and so sometimes what the abuser would do and see, they would hit you and then say, "Look what you made me do." They bring blame to you for their actions. So that's another sign. Um, Also, isolation is a sign. And so if you were this person that was extroverted, and then all of a sudden now you're with this person, um, you're now an introvert, they don't want you with anyone else, that's another sign of domestic violence. Anything else you would like to add, Michaela?
Yes, so I kind of want to emphasize a little bit what she said. You know, love is not, love does not hurt. You know, sometimes we have a distorted sense of love, and we think that our abusers love us um, because they make us feel that way. Part of the cycle is the honeymoon period. You know, that they'll abuse us, and then they'll try to win us over with gifts. Those are signs of abuse. You know, if you have somebody mistreating you and then going out and buying you flowers and telling you that they're sorry and that they're never going to do it again, you know, that's a sign of abuse. It's a continuous cycle until we learn how to break it.
So just to piggyback, and Michaela, I'm glad you brought up the honeymoon periods, because as you stated, a lot of times, and for me, when my abuse happened, I was young, so the person that claimed they loved me, but then they abused me, and then purchased me gifts, like to try to make their behavior my fault. And a lot of times, when you're going through, um, they'll tell you it's something that you done that made them act that way. Um, but if it's something that I done that made you act that way, why would you go buy me a gift to say that you apologize? That's something to think about. And so if there is a young lady that's out and that's watching this, if they're buying you gifts after they abuse you, get yourself together. Reach out to any of us on this panel so we can help you develop a plan to leave. Now, I'm not going to tell you to tell your abuser that you're going to leave them, but you do need a safety plan to leave. Um, Also, we have Miss Midori that just joined us. Hey, love, how are you?
Good now. I was having some technical difficulties, but yay, I'm in here.
Yeah, you in here.
I'm in here.
So, yeah. So, ladies, we talked about some of the potential warning signs. Midori, do you want to piggyback on any of it?
Oh, warning signs. One of the things that I did not pay attention to. With my situation, because I was used to um for lack of a better term, disrespectful behavior already. it was normal in my household and within my family to hear people call each other out of their names. So I normalized behavior that's not normal. So by him calling me, like the song said, "Who you calling a bitch?" I didn't question him. You know, that should have, but I normalized that because I was so used to hearing that. So the first thing I always say to women is know your limits. Know your limits. Know what you cannot tolerate, because the sooner you know yourself, the sooner you can save yourself. Don't wait until it's too late when the pot is so hot that you're screaming to get out. So things like being disrespectful, calling you out of your name, constantly asking you where you're going, asking you about your friends. Who's this? Who's that? Where they stay? You don't need to know about my whereabouts. You don't need to know about my sister's circle of friends unless I want you to know. So when that's an invasion of space, that's an invasion of privacy, and beware of those things. If they start asking you about, income, what you make a little bit too soon in the game, red flag. You shouldn't be asking about my money. It's my money. Okay? It's my money. Why are you asking me about my funding? You should already have yours. And even though the song is it's old school, but No Scrubs was a warning. No Scrubs was a warning. I thought it was a joke, but no lie, Candy Barris and Tiny had something within that song. When you're riding in the back seat and your friends with the ride are riding in the front seat, pay attention because it's about positioning. It's about
Yes.
mentality and it is about behavior, because dude could be 45 but have a 15-year-old mentality. Scrub. Scrub.
No other way to say
No
it.
other way to put it. And I laughed. I was laughing with my sister about this. I said that song was a warning to women. We thought it was a joke, but they were trying to let us in on something. When I was watching the documentary of Biggie's death, his mother said something that was very key. She said, "Listen to the lyrics that these rappers are telling you. Not only are they telling you a story, but there's a warning about what's going on in your community. And if you're not listening, you're missing the entire boat." So pay attention to how they show up, because who they show themselves as, believe them. Believe them. Because even a wolf can be disguised in sheep's clothing. After all, they know their prey.
Exactly. So one of our viewers asked the question, is abuse a choice? And he also says, can personality disorders cause abuse? That's why he's asking if it's a choice. Who wants to go?
So
And then I'm going to sum it.
I'll take a stab at that. So my ex-fiance had bipolar disorder and he was an alcoholic. Was the disorder a choice? That in itself, no, because there was a genetic trait that ran on his mother's side of the family, right? But choosing how you present yourself in that faction is a choice. So because I have bipolar disorder, if I watched those in my family with it manipulate women with it, and they got what they wanted out of it, guess what I'm going to choose if it's going to get me the result I need? So I don't always excuse mental illness when there's a cognitive choice to go the direction you want to go, I personally don't excuse it.
I would
Miss
say,
Michaela, you want to piggyback?
He
I
had
think her mic
adopted.
is muted. Oh, there we go.
Okay. So I definitely agree with what she's saying. I don't feel like mental illness is a choice. My abuser actually suffered from alcoholism. So it was a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality. I never knew what type of person I was going to get each day when he woke up. I do feel like him abusing me was a choice. Um, I feel like although he did have alcoholism disorder, abusing someone is a choice because you're hurting the person that you love. So if you say that you love someone, and as we were talking about before, love does not hurt, and you're abusing that person, you know, that is not love. And I stayed so long because I thought that that's what love was, because, you know, we learned love at a very young age, and I didn't have parents showing me love growing up. So I kind of ran into this man's arms, and he saw that as a weakness. And so
Mhm.
I agree completely with what she was saying. I think that we do have a choice, and we do have control over our actions when it comes to abusing someone. And that's my personal opinion. So.
So, just a little bit to piggyback on what both of you said, and um, to answer your question, Adam, is abuse a choice? It is. It's a choice that the abuser takes. You can't tell a person that you love them, but yet you want to beat on them. He asked the question, was most abusers abuse themselves? They say hurt people, but I've been hurt before. I'm not out to hurt anybody. Because of being hurt and because of being abused, I'm out trying to help others to not suffer what I went through. So, with that, your mindset has to be strong. You have to say, enough is enough. And you have to say, I want a change. Do I believe that abusers can change? I do. But they have to want it. If they're constantly making excuses why they're abusing someone, I have no pity for them. Anybody else care to elaborate?
I think all of you have nailed it on the head. It's a choice, because you abuse me, but then you apologize. So you're aware of what you're doing. So it is a choice.
And Michaela, you made a good point about not seeing love in your household as an example, because that was my situation. And what was interesting about what I saw growing up is when people fought, and I mean it got physical, these
Mhm.
same people apologized and made up. And then it was another cycle of that. So that's what I mean by normalizing it. I thought that was normal. And when you're dealing with an abuser, they're also a predator. So they'll pick up on the weaknesses, on the things that you want so much that they'll manipulate that. And all of that is a choice.
Definitely. They see that vulnerability
Yes,
and they take advantage of it.
absolutely. Coercion.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Mental coercion is what I call it, because you're unaware of what they're doing, but it's being done.
I'm sorry, everybody. I'm having technical difficulties.
The devil is a
So
liar.
hopefully
He's
this
not going
got
to
to,
stop the show.
yeah, he's not going to stop it.
Yeah.
Get thee
So let
behind me,
me readjust and we're going to get this. Sorry, guys. I had to readjust but hey, we in there. All
we in
right.
the
Sorry,
house.
viewers. And things happen when you're trying to make sure that you guys, so important that you get answers, and that we do what we do because we're all passionate about what we do. So I'm sorry
Absolutely.
about the technical difficulties, but hey, we're back. So maybe this is better. um, I missed some of it, but nevertheless, I hope the viewers got what you guys was saying. We were also asked, is narcissism related to abuse?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because narcissism is basically being in love with your own portrait. You don't see anybody but you. So, narcissism is completely related to abuse, because when it's about you and your agenda, that's how you're going to perpetuate yourself every day. And it's going to be consistent. It's going to be consistent with not only how you treat your loved ones, it's going to be consistent even in your business relationships. It's going to be very prevalent because narcissists love themselves.
Yes, they love their image. So in public, like when I was around family members and stuff like that, my abuser would put on this act that he was this wonderful boyfriend and he was just this amazing person. But behind closed doors, as soon as we went home, he was arguing with me about something I might have said wrong or did wrong. And that turned into physical abuse. So they're very consumed with how they look to the public, how they perceive themselves, and how other people perceive them.
Very much so. So people on the team are on SWAT is on. So you guys are going to see questions from SWAT members as well. But one of my team, when it says, did your home life play a part in who you chose as a mate? For me, yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna just start that. An abuser knows how to manipulate you. They know how to make you feel loved. Um, and so for me, I watched my parents. My parents was together until God called my mom home. And then my older sister, she got married, and she just had like um a perfect, it seemed like a perfect marriage. And so, I wanted to idol that. And right before I got married, I was pregnant in high school. So I definitely wanted my daughter, well, my baby, to have what I had. I had a two, I had all of that. I never seen my parents argue because they didn't argue in front of us. Even if they discipline us, they were on one accord throughout that whole, thing. Now, if they disagreed, that went on behind, where we didn't see. their disagreements wasn't out in front of us. So um chose my mate. He seemed like the ideal person. He was working. He was supportive when I was in high school. It seemed like this ideal guy. When it was, it was little things then, but now that I look at it, it was all to wing me in. And then not just that relationship, but I also got into, after I got grown or whatever, because I don't consider myself grown at that age because I was 17, you know. Um, so, but after I got older and got into different relationships, and I don't know about you ladies, but for me, I became a magnet to abusers. It seemed like they was perfect in the beginning and then boom. But I chose each one of them because the conversations, and they will pretend to be what I was looking for, and then they will explode. It was a little bit more than what I was looking for. So I don't know about you ladies. Any of you can elaborate on the question.
That's a very good question. And honestly, for me, because of what I saw in my home life, I was deliberately looking for something different. So the men in my family were educated and street smart. And I can honestly say, there was abuse with every bit of their situations. If I didn't see my parents fight in front of me, my uncles with their girlfriends, they were abusive to them. I remember one uncle whose girlfriend, whom I called Aunt Debbie, I remember her and my mother picking me up from after school care, and she had a nice black and blue shiner on her right eye that she was trying to cover up with these Donna Summer shades. And I remember my mother telling her, "You need to confront my brother. That's not cool. I love him, but that's not good. You need to deal with my brother's stuff because that's not good." And though he apologized to her, there was a toxicity within his behavior because he was an alcoholic. So the people that I was wanting to date, I deliberately looked for something different. So if a smart, intelligent man was attracted to me, I was looking for Busta Rhymes. I was looking for that thug on the street. I wanted danger. He had a car. Let's go. And I set my own self up for failure because in my mind, I didn't think I was worthy of anything better.
I guess I can go next. So my parents were together, but they separated, but never divorced when I was in the sixth grade. And I was a daddy's girl. And so for me, that was devastating. Um, and the reason why they separated is because of alcoholism and then extramarital relationships. And so that was devastating to me. Um, my abuser, I never sought him out. I actually met him in church. And so we're probably going to talk about that a little bit later. But I met him in church. We both serving the Lord. Hallelujah. But yeah, I met him in church. And so I never thought of him as that. But I think it was me trying to fill that void that I missed from my dad. Because I was a daddy's girl. And on top of that, even though like my dad got real sick and had cancer, I ended up having to take care of him. And we had to have an honest conversation. And I had to let him know his life choices affected my life choices. because of the fact that I needed my dad to affirm me. I needed my dad to give me identity. And when he did not, especially sixth grade, you just, I mean, that's when you really blossom into a young lady that really needs her dad. And so we had that hard conversation, but I would say your upbringing do have a part to do with it.
Awesome. So, these are some really, really good questions that the audience is asking as well. Why do you think that victims stay with their abusers? Anybody can feel free.
I would
We all
say
jumping in.
financial. Number one being financial. Financial abuse is perhaps the most underrated aspect of domestic violence that hardly gets brought to the forefront. I recall mentoring a young woman at my organization's Grants of Hope program, where we teach financial literacy and we partner these women with mentors just to help them understand finances and their financial struggles and just dissect everything. And this young woman had a PhD in grant writing, but her husband took her check. She didn't know what her net pay was. She didn't know what was in the bank account because he wouldn't allow her access to the account. All she knew is that a check went into the account. She didn't even know how to read a bank statement. Now, mind you, this is a woman with a PhD in grant writing. You can write a grant, but you cannot read a bank statement. You don't know how much you make because your mind is already in the habit of, okay, it goes in the account and husband pays the bills and he gives me my allowance. When this man left her for another woman, he left her with $7,000 worth of debt that she had to untangle, separate, and categorize and figure out. And that was tough for her because one of the things she said to me was, I wonder how my life would have been had I stayed. Would my finances be in order? Women are afraid to leave 90% of the time due to financial abuse. Because when you're being physically abused and you're a woman going to work and you show up to work late or you show up to work battered or your performance is inconsistent, now you're out of a job, which is, again, within the grand scheme of things, because now he has complete control. Because that was my situation. I was being physically abused and financially abused. And as I said, my ex-fiance had bipolar disorder. He was an alcoholic and an ordained minister.
Ooh, jeez.
So talk about hallelujah, praise the Lord. I had to get creative on saving money because he kept stealing my bank card. So I began using shampoo containers to hide money. Heck, I even used tampon containers. And I won't even lie. I will take the white stuff out and shove money in. And I knew he wouldn't touch it because it's a Tampax box. I mean, I literally had to get creative on how to create an income for a safety plan. Because financial abuse is underrated and it's not often talked about, but that is one of the number one reasons why women don't leave.
Anybody want to elaborate?
Michaela,
Yeah, of course. So I, for me, I feel like the reason why I stayed, I had a distorted sense of love. So I didn't get to kind of go in on the other question, but I grew up in a very toxic household, where my parents were verbally abusive to each other. And I don't really feel like I had self-esteem. So my abuser kind of diminished my self-esteem and my self-worth, made me feel like I was nothing, like I couldn't find anyone else, that this was my only option. And that's why I stayed for so long. I also had experienced some sexual violence in my childhood as well. Um, and so I was longing for love. And my abuser was the first person that showed me any sign of love. And so I kind of ran towards that. Um, I did experience financial abuse also, and I also experienced spiritual abuse. So he would use religion as a tactic, um, as control and power over me, use verses out of the Bible as to why women should be controlled a certain way, certain things that we needed to do. And I didn't grow up in a religious household, so I believed the things that he was telling me. And I had went along with it for quite some time.
For me, I stayed for the sake of my children. Um, and I think a lot of women stay for the sake of their children. Um, I said over and over, I always wanted my children to have what I had. I had a two-parent loving home. You know, I could go to my parents, I could talk to them about anything. So I wanted my children to have that. Um, and then, being the second oldest and watching my oldest sister have a solid relationship with her husband. Um, when the abuse happened with me, I start to feel like a failure. Like, it was really my fault. I failed my family. This is going to be embarrassing, not just for me, but for my family as well, for my children. Um, it's like, what did I do wrong? What can I do better? Um, so I began to like doubt who I was. I lost me trying to put up a front for everybody else. So it's easy for somebody to say, well, why do you stay? Why didn't you just leave? I want to be honest and transparent here. Leaving is not always as easy as it looks. Leaving sometimes costs you your life. Um, and now the way social media, everything is set up, you know, um, people go through more. When I was going through in 95, we didn't have social media, we didn't have all this. Um, it would take writing a letter and praying the mailman didn't lose it, or, maybe on the phone or whatever. But social media now has just made it worse for a lot of people that's going through, because now this is another means and way that your abuser can get in contact with you. So for me, I stayed. Also, my story is a little different. I know a lot of women, when they walk away, um they don't have the funds, but when I walked away, I did. I walked away financially good, but the sad part was, as Midori explained about the young lady who had money and knew nothing about finances. I didn't know how to balance a checkbook. I didn't know. I didn't know any of that. So that's what honestly made me go back to school, and learn about taxes, do accounting, because I wanted to learn and I didn't want anybody to be able to lie to me, um, about how finances should go. So I researched and it was like, oh, okay, accounting. Um, Accounting and computers. So that's what I got my degrees in, computer information system and accounting, because I wanted to know, what was, the world was transitioning, back then. But if somebody would have told me, hey, and that's what I wished, in our households, in the Black community, that we teach our children financial literacy, that we teach them, you know, um, what good credit is, that we teach that stuff so nobody can take it away from them. For me, my abuser used my credit. I didn't know what it was. It was like, hey, we married, let's go do this. It seemed good to go and get money and, and not worry about it or just have money in your account, but really didn't understand what they was doing that affected your credit. So when we talk about financial abuse and we talk about all of that, we need to also, talk about the financial literacy. We need to educate, at a young age. We need to educate our children on what financial literacy is so they'll be okay. I know that's a little off from where we, but hey, but go ahead, Miss Rhonda. I see you done came.
Look, honey, I'm like, okay. So, one of the things you said is about what we say in the household, especially the African American household. When it comes to, I think one of the worst terms that we can have in our household is what happens in this house stays in this house.
Stays in his
That has
house.
hurt so many children. I mentor kids and I see that. I can't talk about it. Why? You're being abused by your mother's boyfriend. You can't talk about it.
That is the death of us.
What happens? It has killed us. And I said, we have all of these family secrets. And
Yes.
so when somebody explodes, it's like they crazy. No. They crazy because they are breaking. They're not crazy, but they're breaking generational curses. And people don't want to admit that it's a generational curse.
Yes, it
But
is.
that's generational curse that needs to be broken. And so I think the worst thing as parents, because we don't want to deal with things or the Black community or any community, because it just don't happen in the Black community. It's all families that says what happened in this house stays here. But I think we have got to get to the point where we're open for our children to come to us. We're open for people to
Mm.
express themselves when they're hurting. And then it's so funny because I have a 24-year-old and he had asked me today, he said, Mom, what happens if oh my God, it was so much. So we was talking about the Monique Bonnet thing, right?
Yes.
And he was like, well, I feel like there's been so much taken away from us. So I should be able to wear what I want. I said, but what she was saying was pride. We took so much pride in covering that we didn't allow ourselves to heal from the covering, if that makes sense. It was so much hidden. And I told him, we got to get to a point where we are prideful about our appearance, but also we got to be prideful about our healing. Our healing.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I totally get where you're coming from with that, because we need to own our truth. That is one of the things that we aren't taught. And that whole issue of hiding our pain, not letting them see you sweat, that is a mentality that came from slavery. Because if you showed that you were weak, you were separated from your family. So when you were separated from your family, you don't know if you're going to see them anymore. So you did everything you could for the sake of family, right? Well, transfer that mentality to today. there's your abusive situation. You're doing everything for the sake of family, even if that means I'm getting whooped, even if that means I'm on the verge of dying, even if that means he's strangling me at night or he puts his foot on my rib cage. I'm here to protect my family. I want my kids, I want us to be a solid unit because we already come from brokenness.
Right. Take one for the
So,
team.
exactly. So, I'm going to take that L so that we don't get broken. We don't get separated or spread apart. But here's the kicker, you are going to be broken if one of you doesn't make it out.
Mm. And
Families
you're
are the
not going to be the
bond.
only one broken.
Exactly. Something my dad said to me once when I talked to him about him and my mother's relationship and why he took the abuse from her. And one of the things he said was, I wanted you to have a memory of me because I was going to leave when you were 2, but I was afraid that at 2 years old, you wouldn't have known who I was. I wanted you to
Wow.
have a strong sense of who I was as a father. But we were broken anyway because my parents divorced when I was 5, and I didn't see my dad for 6 years later because my mother kept violating court order for visitation. So who did
Wow.
who a favor? You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to healthy relationships and wanting to create a healthy environment, take a look at your current surroundings and ask yourself what you want and make that decision, because your kids are going to forgive you when they're able to understand it, but you got to be here to explain it to them.
Exactly. So one of the questions our viewers are asking, are you saying that abuse is learned behavior? Michaela.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it is. Um, because like, okay, so I grew up in a very abusive household. I don't necessarily think that I learned the behavior of abuse, but I definitely didn't learn healthy communication. I didn't learn healthy boundaries. So sometimes when you're exposed to that type of environment, you become accustomed to those things, and that's the only way that you know how to express yourself. But it's very important that we unlearn those behaviors, and we learn how to create healthy boundaries, because that was one thing that was very important for me coming out of my abusive relationship, was building up my sense of self-worth, building up my self-esteem, and creating those healthy boundaries in future relationships. So I know what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. So I feel like, yes, abuse can be a learned behavior, but it's also not an excuse either. Um, we kind of have to learn how to separate the unhealthy from the healthy and the good from the bad. Um, and remember that, we're teaching ourselves how to treat other people. And it's not okay to abuse. It's not okay. And it's not okay. And that's why I do what I do. So people know they're not alone, and they have that voice. Because, our stories might be the key to someone else's survival guide. We don't know who's listening to this right now, who might have needed to hear some of the things that we had to say, and they could take that with them, and it'll help them.
Exactly. Um, and I will say abuse is a learned behavior. I know my abuser seen it in his home. So he's seen it, he done it. And Yeah. So definitely, it's a learned behavior. So let me ask you, ladies, this, and because we all advocate, we all do what we do to spread awareness, to help other people, in some form or fashion. We're all entangled with an organization. So, and we all been through a form of abuse. But what did your situation teach you that you apply when you're advocating for other victims? What did it teach you that you apply um, for other victims? Y'all could go however you want.
Not to be silent. If it hurts, say ouch. Don't just take it. My situation also taught me the value of being resourceful, knowing how to create an emergency fund, learning how to step outside of my comfort zone to ask for help, something that I was not comfortable in doing. But my situation taught me the value of asking for help and being vulnerable, being humble enough to accept help however it comes. And it also showed me how strong I actually was, because I had to rebuild myself, my finances, everything, because I left with just my car and my clothes. I had to start from scratch. But along the way, just by me being able to get up in the morning and go to work, knowing that I'm alive, that I had no complaints with starting over. So sometimes starting over can be a blessing in disguise. You just have to be open to the challenge, because it's not going to be easy, but it's worth every bit of investment when it comes to your life.
Michaela?
My situation taught me to not be silent as well. It also taught me that a relationship doesn't define who I am. And we're all beautiful, we're all worthy, and we deserve to be treated with respect. And if someone's not treating you with respect, then you don't need to be with or around that person. It also taught me that my life is valuable, because I was hospitalized for quite some time after my domestic violence situation. And so I'm very blessed to be here. And it also taught me that, there's strength in numbers. So I felt like I was alone in my domestic violence situation. But when I created my organization and realized how many other people have gone through similar things or worse, it empowered me, and it made me realize that, I wasn't alone as I thought I was. And so it definitely it did teach me a lot. And I try to use that to help other people.
Miss Rhonda?
So for me, my situation taught me there was nothing that I could have done to. So for me, I was living in guilt. Like, maybe I shouldn't have answered the call that night. Maybe if I hadn't done this, and I was living with that fear and that guilt of that, but I did nothing wrong. I think a lot of times what victims end up doing is carrying that burden of another person's bad choices, and it was nothing that I did wrong. That would probably be the main thing. And it also taught me self-love, like loving myself, learning to practice self-care. I know as women, we oftentimes spend time nurturing. That's a part of our nature, is nurturing others and making sure everybody else is good. Oh, take time out, sis. Are you good? Are you good? Are you mentally good? I mean, sometimes you just need a mental break. Sometimes you just need to go outside and scream. All right, it's okay. And I think we have normalized chaos. And the chaos is not supposed to be normalized. And so I've learned those two things. I would say definitely there's nothing I could have done to change that night. There's nothing that I did wrong. And then secondly, is to love myself more, put myself first.
Mhm. And for
And I'll
me,
add
what I
something
learned
else.
was,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Renita.
go ahead.
No,
Oh,
I'll
go
add
ahead.
something that I saw on Miss Rhonda's wall made me think about this. I learned that I matter. My dreams matter. My goals matter. My voice matters. Because you're
Mhm.
told in the relationship that to be frank, you ain't shit. And ironically, when I did not graduate from high school magna cum laude, my dad told me I wasn't shit. So you believe what's planted in your brain, that you're not shit. So you create this vicious web of, well, I have something to prove. I'm going to be better than what you say you are. And you wind up putting yourself back in the same situation that you left
Mhm.
because you're so busy trying to project. But if you already know it, what do you have to prove? As long as you know you matter,
Exactly.
that's it. Let him come to you. I don't have to go to you. I got my platform. I can stay in my lane. And that was the other thing when I met my ex-fiance. I was in such a hurry to get married because my friends were getting married. So I thought I was like, oh, woe is me. I'm the loser here. Oh, I'm not going to get married. Nobody wants me. So not true. So not true. I'm almost 50 years old and I'm great. Okay. If he comes, he comes. Let God send him my way. But I'm not crying over spilled milk. Okay. Love yourself. Love the skin you are in
Mhm.
because I almost left it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's what I learned. I learned to love me. I lost me and I learned to please me. I'm not going to please everybody. Self-care was one of the things that I had to learn. I was busy taking care of everybody else, taking care of their needs, and my needs was being neglected. So now I have self-care days that I take. I still take. Um, my husband called them my get up and go days. And I do nothing but, for me. And so when I'm advocating with other women and with other men, I tell them they need time for themselves. You need time to think. You need time to say, hey, these are my goals. This is what I want to see done. You know, I tell them all the time, like, you got to love you. If nobody love you, if you don't do anything, every morning I look in the mirror, I say, girl, I love you. Girl, you pretty. You know, I boost my own self up. I encourage me because so many has torn me down. Baby, you can't tear me down. Oh, you said I'm ugly? Oh, okay, thank you. That's me. Because see, I already told myself every morning I'm pretty. Hello. So one of the things, and it also taught me, I used to be so quiet. I would stare at you, I wouldn't say anything, and I would wear my feelings on my shoulder. But what I went through, I'm no longer silent. If I feel it, I'm going to say it. If I hurt your feelings, baby, let me know. Oh, okay. Maybe I won't say it that harsh the next time, but you going to know. It's not going to come secondhand from anybody. It's going to come directly from Bernita Council Howard. Okay? I had to learn that um I was told, oh, you got these children, nobody's gonna want you. Baby, married, boom, somebody wanted me. But I also loved me. So no matter what, it came, got them, 14 years with them, what? but that's what I had to learn, that I'm important. I'm worth everything And anything that I want, I'm worth it. I'm beautiful. Hey, I don't need the makeup. I used to have to get the makeup you know, to cover up, but now it just enhanced the beauty. And I don't have to put it on. Before I used to have to wear it, but now I don't have to. I could just pop me some lip gloss and go about my business. But hey, um, we good, you know. And so even advocating, sometimes we get caught up on the proper language for this and the proper language for that. Sometimes when you're advocating, you have to come to their level because they're hurt. They're where you used to be. So when I'm advocating, I always look at them, and I don't know about you ladies, but it's like it's always something about them that reminds you of that night or that day or that particular moment. And a lot of times the victims at the moment will say, well, I shouldn't have said, or if I had just done this, baby, you could have said it humble. But if he has already or she had already made their mind to abuse you, it was going to happen anyway. It's not your fault. Anytime somebody calls SWAT hotline, my intake will talk to tell them it's not your fault. We're in this together. When you made this call, you made me part of the problem. We're in this together. It's not your fault. Because honestly, when it was happening to me, I felt like it was my fault because my abusers would say, if you didn't say, or if you didn't respond, or if you didn't, well, what do you want me to do? You're beating me. You don't want me to say anything. You don't want to say it hurt because it did, you know, or you want to say these things to me, but you don't want me to respond. If I don't agree, I don't agree. But it's a difference when you get a man to understand who you are. Because 14 years, baby, me and my husband don't agree on everything. But in the beginning, I had started lashing out at him because I was waiting for him to change like the rest of them. See, in the beginning, I had Boaz, brothers, cousins, and all of them. Okay. So I had to realize that this was truly my Boaz. You know, he would walk away. Look, I'm trying to express myself. Why are you leaving? Because you're screaming. We're adults. When you want to talk to me, then we can talk. But if you're going to scream, I'm not going to. And my husband don't raise his voice at all. I had to learn that. But he wasn't going to allow all the pain and hurt that I was feeling to tear him down either. So he taught me, like, look, whatever you went through in the past, that's them. Don't bring it here. We can talk as adults. We're not going to always agree. I'm not going to always say yes to you. You're not going to always say yes to me. But we can come to an agreement. We can agree to disagree or disagree to agree. Most of the time I try to get them to agree with me, but but yeah, so it's a difference. When you find that one, you're gonna know. Um, if somebody would have told me 14 years ago that I had finally met someone who truly loved me for me, I would have said no way. Um, because I was so hurt. But even on this journey with what I do, he's very supportive. Um, and he helps to push me to be a better me, a better advocate, um, and just to do what I do to help other people. So when I'll say to anyone, when you get that person, you're gonna know it's gonna be a different in you. It's gonna be a glow like never before. Um, so that's just my spill for it. But because I could talk about my boo thing, you know, because it's
But you
different.
bring up
It's
very
different.
good point. You bring up a very good point, Renita, and that is this is something that I heard a pastor say not too long ago. Love can be a beautiful thing and it can also be selfish. And it's within that selfishness, if you don't come to realize it, your life will become a casualty. And that hit me like a ton
Hmm.
of bricks because it goes deeper than just abuse. It's like what you were saying before when you're constantly taking care of other people and you're constantly doing
Hmm.
for other people, but none of that is being reciprocated. No one is pouring into you. The energy that you had for yourself is now spent. So you're now in
Hmm.
spiritual debt. So that becomes a template for your life in becoming a casualty. So knowing when that person is supposed to be in your life is crucial because that person who is supposed to be in your life will not only feed your soul, but he will help birth your assignment.
Hmm.
He helping you
So that,
build.
yeah,
Hmm.
he will help you build and regenerate because cells regenerate every day, but they don't regenerate on their own. We have to feed them. So, in order for you to spiritually regenerate, someone has to feed you, and they will gladly take that assignment. Gladly.
Yes. So, I don't know about any of you, but did any of you have to co-parent with your abuser? So let me spill on this. I did. I had to co-parent with my abuser. Um, and I'm gonna be very transparent, and you guys will know that I'm really real. Um, After I had got that control and had my children, by myself, um, there was times that I wouldn't allow him to see the children. Um, for one, I was afraid. I was afraid that, you know, if he got my children, he would threaten at times that he wasn't going to bring them back. And if you know me, you know that I love my children. That's just my heart. And so the hardest part for me going through was years after we had separated, he went to court. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a brush under the bridge. I'm going to let them know about the abuse and they're not going to allow the children to be with him. Well, go to court. And about 20 days later, I get papers in the mail that he gets them every other weekend. And he gets them unsupervised. He has to have them, he picks them up at a certain time and he has to have them back by a certain time. Well, because his name was on the birth certificate in the state of North Carolina, he technically didn't even have to bring them back. So, um, but every time he was late, I done a paper trail. I would call the sheriff. I would show up where he was. And people would say, "Oh, you're being petty," but at this point, you've taken me through a lot, and I don't know if you're gonna bring me my children, or if I will call, he'll be like, "Oh, I'm not bringing them right now. I got things to do." Okay, so let's go ahead and get this paper trail. So I had to co-parent with him, and it was horrible. But at the end of the day, when they turned 16 and they decided, hey, they wasn't going, it was nothing they could do. Oh, baby, take me to court because they don't want to go. So I'm not forcing my children to go anywhere. So for me, I don't know about other people, it was hard. I had hatred in my heart for him. Um, I hadn't healed at the time. I wasn't even seeking any type of counseling or therapy. So I was angry. And then I truly felt like the judicial system failed me, because why would you allow my children to be around somebody that abused me? But now let me clear this. After everything, and he started being involved with the children, he was an excellent father to them. We was not an excellent couple at all. Um, in the beginning, with him getting the paperwork to see the children, it was really out of spite. But I won't take away that he was an excellent father to them once we were separated. You know, um, he stepped up when it came to them, and he's still stepping up when it comes to them, even with them being grown. But as far as being no, so I'll say to anyone who's, be careful. I think old people used to say, um, I forgot the old saying, but be careful who you decide to lay down and have your children with. Make sure. Um, I know people don't even date now. They just ready to jump into a relationship and feel like they got their Boaz. Date. Go around the family. See who you are entangling with. So you don't be sitting on this panel saying, hey, I went through the abuse. I would rather for you to be somewhere saying, I never went through that. I thank God for you guys being able to uplift us. But, this is not something that you truly want to go through. It's not. Um, I admire the ladies that's on this panel, because it gets hard at times telling your story, advocating. But we only want what's best. So sometimes we have to let go of us to make sure that you get what you need to educate you. So don't think that it's easy, no matter how many organizations we have, no matter what we do. It don't get easy. But we do it because of our passion.
And too much is given, much is required. So I feel that it's a responsibility for me to pull someone up out of the dark, because God lifted me out, literally. And if it weren't for my late paternal grandmother at the time when I escaped to her house, she was 95, but she knew I was in trouble without me telling her. She told my aunts and my uncle, I'm going to help my granddaughter because she's in trouble. And she slept with a baseball bat by her door. If there was anything that was going to pop off, she showed me where it was. She said, come get it if you need it, if I can't swing first. God bless her heart. She lived to be 100 years old, but she knew what I was going through, because after I went through it, she told me my grandfather did it to her. And she actually admired my way of responding, because she said in her ignorance, she did things to counteract that caused her children harm, because she wasn't emotionally available to them as a mother, which in turn explains my father's emotional void in my life, because you can't be emotional or show emotion if none was shown to you. And this is the kind of psychological baggage that abuse can carry. In my healing, I've learned that I'm the fourth woman on my mother's side of the family who went through domestic violence and sexual assault. My maternal great grandmother was murdered by her husband. My great grandfather, he strangled her to death. My grandmother, my late maternal grandmother, was punched by her boyfriend in front of my mother and my uncles, which in turn, that's how they dealt with their anger, by violence, because that's what they saw. That was what was presented to them. And then my mother married an abusive man prior to her marrying my father. So this trickles down, all because we're keeping secrets, all because we want to not air our dirty laundry. But by owning your truth and being unafraid of it, you can stop this. Because otherwise, the cycle,
and that's generational curses.
generational. Yes, amen. That is a perfect example of generational curses. Because my own grandfather, though he wasn't physically abusive towards my maternal grandmother or even my step grandmother when he married and had 9 children with his wife, but he was a philanderer. He was a Rolling Stone, and he was murdered because of that. You think you're larger than life and bigger than God, but you have an affair with your best friend's wife. Look what you just brought on. His best friend murdered him. All because you did not understand boundaries, because your own father didn't respect your own mother's boundaries. So you carry that hurt, you carry that pain, and you carry that longing for a woman's touch, that you make insightful choices that bring about your own demise. So this is what I mean by owning your truth. Don't be afraid of the things you learn. Embrace it. Own it. It's your truth. But most importantly, learn from it, because these things can save your life and the life of your children.
Mm-hmm. So, how does the economy affect domestic violence?
With the unemployment rate, oh my God, that definitely
Oh,
affects.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And the homelessness.
yeah, and then the pandemic on top of that.
Woo,
I mean, wow.
it's out of control. I'm in
Yeah,
Charlotte, and the tent city here is growing.
it is.
It is growing. It scares me.
Mm-hmm.
Going over
I know
277
I
and
done
just
a
seeing multicolored tents. It's so frightening.
I know I done research the other day. I'm always looking and researching when it comes to domestic violence. But it says domestic violence is the third leading cause of homelessness amongst families. So, um, I can't even imagine, like right now. Um, I don't even want to imagine how many families, especially with the jobs. Yeah, it is jobs available, but when they have certain criteria that you have to meet, you know, what happens? Um,
And then cost
some
of
people
living
just walking
is
out.
skyrocketed.
Yeah. So the economy plays a big part. And, and then I also look at, since we're talking about the economy and we brought up the pandemic, let's look at all of those that are home a majority of the time now with their abusers. Before the telework, a lot of people say, hey, telework is good. At least you kept your job, at least you're able. But is it really, really good? You know, if that was the only way that you got away from your abuser. You know what I mean? Like when you went to work, it gave you some peace of mind. It gave you time to write down your thoughts, or whatever. But now, honestly, if you're teleworking and your abuser is teleworking, it's kind of hard to make a safety plan to leave because they're always home. And that's one of the issues that I'm seeing. Um, Not only does it affect the abuser, but imagine those children that were being virtually schooled. You know, they're seeing the abuse as well. And I know for me, with my children seeing it, it caused health issues. I am still suffering from health issues because of the abuse. My intestines was kicked in, split. So, um, I just can't even imagine now if I would have to sit in home 24/7 with my abuser. And I think about those that that's just trying to make it through, you know, just trying to make it through. So, like I said, the economy do play a role, and especially with this pandemic, a lot of people, again, oh, well, at least you got your job, but you don't know what I'm going through. So is telework really worth it for me? Because teleworking can cost me my life at any given time because the violence, a person, it can turn violent in an instant. Somebody can piss them off at work over the phone and I'll be their punching bag. Go ahead, Midori.
I will also add too with, while we were discussing earlier about financial abuse and how finances play a gargantuan decision and having someone leave. Well, if you can't afford the cost of living, I mean, because here in Charlotte, the average cost for a one-bedroom apartment is $1,100. $1,100. And if you go outside of Mecklenburg County, you're looking at about $945. And if you're not making enough money to cover just to get a roof over your head, if you can't cover that expense alone, then what? And then to add, if you're working from home, and if the abuse is happening at home, that's time taken off of your check. And you're still in jeopardy of losing your job. Then, if you want to go to a shelter, you can't because they're overcrowded. If you want to go to court,
and then that was one of the first things that was cut. And funding, people don't understand the funding was cut for some domestic violence shelters, when the pandemic hit. So if they're not stable and, didn't have, they can't offer it, because they had to make adjustments, however, to keep the resources going. So what do we do? Go ahead, Rhonda.
I would just like to add to that too, not only that some of the domestic violence shelters um, are funded with like United Way funds. And so I'm on a board for United Way, a board of directors. And the overall United Way funding did not have the money that it usually would. People didn't give as much because it was a pandemic. And so what had to get cut? Funding for the domestic violence shelter. So I just want to echo that into what you were saying.
Yes. I don't know. It's it's heartbreaking, but we do what we do and we make it happen. But I just wanted to point some of that, some of that out. And I'm glad that you pointed that out, Rhonda, as well. Um, I'm gonna ask you guys something that was asked of me. I done an interview not long ago, and we're gonna begin to wrap this up just a little bit. But if your abuser was watching this live, what would you say to them? We'll start with you, Miss Michaela. Michaela, then Miss
Um,
Midori, then Miss Rhonda.
you know what I think I would say to him is what you did to me is a reflection of your character. I have my power back. I have my control back. And I don't think I would be the person that I am today if I didn't go through that. I kind of want to add something about what you guys were talking about, like with the economy. It definitely does affect after my domestic violence situation. I was hospitalized and released to the streets because there was no room in the domestic violence shelters. So I was homeless, sleeping on park benches for quite some time, debating if I should go back to my abuser just to have a roof over my head. Um, but God helped get me through it. I feel like God gives his biggest battles to his strongest soldiers, and I'm definitely one of them. And so I think the main thing that I would tell my abuser is that you didn't break me. You could never break me, and I have my power back now. I have my voice back, and I'm determined to do whatever I can to help as many people as possible. So, yeah.
Miss Midori.
I was sitting here laughing to myself about what I would say to mine. First thing I would probably say is Satan be gone. But after I told me, get thee behind me, all the way behind, so far back that you are a blur, okay? But once I let him know those innuendos, I would say thank you for not only pointing out to me that I was stronger, period, that I didn't need you at all. Thank you for pointing out that lie. Thank you for pointing me towards my purpose, because I honestly feel that my purpose came to me because of this situation. That was one of the things that I prayed to God often was, why me? God, I keep seeing the same thing happen to me. I used to joke, was it in the tatas? I mean, I just need to know why. Why? Why me? Jesus, help me, Father God. It's just like when Jesus went to the mountain, he said, why did you forsake me, God? Why me? And the like, why? Do I have a dart on my head somewhere that I didn't know about? But in all honesty, what I got from it was Romans 8:28. Everything culminated to work for my good. This wasn't planned. This was not supposed to happen, but it did. What are you going to do with it? Because you're alive. So obviously, I got something in mind. So you have to trust the process. And I thank God and I thank Him for pointing me that much closer to God, that I can lean in on His promises and receive thy blessings eternal. Because of my experience, I leaned in so close to God. He's my teddy bear now. He is my teddy bear now, okay? Like, I don't make a move without consulting thy master, okay? Let me
Exactly.
here for conference. And I don't hesitate to say so. So I thank my ex-fiance, the minister that he was. That was the one thing he did do, was deliver me to God. He delivered me to God, bruised and battered and broke. And I came out bronze like Esther. Hallelujah. I came out bronze like Esther.
Miss Rhonda?
All right. So when she was saying that, the first thing that I thought about was the Potter wants to put you back together again. When you were saying that. Um, oh my God. Yeah, the Potter wants to put you back together again. My God. So what I would say to my abuser is I choose to forgive. No longer had I used to say, I forgive, I'm fine, I forgive, I forgive. But that was lip service. And it was not truly in my heart forgiven. And so when I really surrender that thing to God, and I allow Him to penetrate my heart and to penetrate the brokenness, I could go to Him and ask why. That's when true forgiveness comes. And so I would say thank you because I choose to forgive. Yeah.
So if my abuser is watching, which I'm pretty sure he is, as I say again, I forgive you. But at the same token, I thank you because if your actions did not happen, I wouldn't be doing what I do. So you pushed me into my purpose. So I want to say to you again, thank you. Because not only that, you made
would like to talk to Renita Council
y'all
Howard.
sorry, Alexa wanna talk. But I will say to you, thank you. You pushed me into my purpose. You have given me um you have given me a means of helping other people. You have given me a voice that I didn't think that I had. Not only did you give me a voice, but you gave my son a voice. Um, and to let you know that your actions don't hurt anymore. I took my power back, I took my control back, and you just pushed me into my destination. Not only that, you pushed me closer to Christ because if it had not happened, I would probably still be out trying to find my way. But because of your actions, you pushed me to be a better me. So, with that being said, thank you. Not only that, you pushed me into my Boaz hands. So, thank you. Thank you. And out of everything, I forgive you. My heart is pure. My life has purpose, and I forgive you. You can never take that away from me again. So that's what I would say to my abuser. So we're gonna wrap this up, and we're gonna begin to talk to the people a little more. Um, just give them some. If they're going through right now, what do you say to them? How do you advocate for them and advocate with them? So we're gonna start with Miss Michaela, go to Miss Rhonda, and then Miss Medora. Miss Midori.
Well, I would definitely say that if you're going through it right now, you're not alone. And there are people who care. There is help out there. So please reach out to one of us or, someone else that's in your area. Remember that it's not your fault. Remember that you're beautiful and you're worthy of all good things that life has to offer. And definitely don't be ashamed of your situation. Don't be afraid of judgment. There's nothing that you could say to me that would make me not want to help you, or any of us not want to help you. So use your voice, and use that inner strength that you have, and come forward and speak out. That's what I would say.
Miss Rhonda.
I would say, I will say to them that you're not alone. A lot of times, what keeps our mouth closed, and my son says this all the time. And one time it ticked me off, but he said, "Mom, closed mouth don't get fed." And I was like, "What?" But But that's so true. And so just know you're not alone. I mean, it took boldness for us to come. I mean, it took years of healing for us to come forth. You're not alone. Um, there's so much power in your voice. And so I would encourage you to take your voice back. Take your voice back. You are worthy, sis or brother. You are so worthy. And so you're surrounded by love. I mean, and the enemy would have you to think that you're isolated, right? Nobody cares. It's just little me. But you're surrounded. I mean, you got 4 people right here, just like what I wish where they at. We're gonna get them, because we coming at them. But I know I
Right.
will. But like, where my gun at? Where my gun at? No, no, sorry, just joking. But seriously, we're so passionate about what we do, and that's the reason why we agreed to be a part of this. And so ultimately I would say you're not alone.
Miss Medora.
So to piggyback on what the other lady said, yes, know that no matter how many times you hear you're not you don't mean anything, you ain't nothing, you ain't shit, you ain't nobody, you are somebody. That one of the things I remember being a little kid watching Jesse Jackson on Sesame Street telling Big Bird and Ernie that I may be different, but I am somebody. You are somebody. So understand your worth, understand your value, understand whose you are. And if I didn't learn anything, because of course my car was repeatedly stolen as well, so I couldn't make it to church unless I was with him. So on the days that I was alone in a corner looking for my car keys, my spare keys, because he had this manipulative game of hiding them, I would read my Bible. And one thing that came across to me was in Proverbs: do not befriend angry people. Know who you're dealing with. Don't allow the manipulation to blur your vision. He is still a monster in sheep's clothing. So to you, I say, come up with a safety plan. Hide you some money in your laundry detergent bag. If you know what room he doesn't go into, hide your money there. If you know what things he doesn't touch, hide your money there. Hide your money. I don't care if it's $1, hide it. Every dollar you grab, scrape, scruffle for, hide it.
Mhm.
Because you need to create a safety plan. You need to create a cushion. Also, create a lifeline. If you're going out with him, take a picture of his license plate and send it to your friends. Hey, I'm in this dude's car. This is his car. If something happens to me, know where
This is
I
who I'm
am.
with.
Okay? Know where I am. Know where I am. Because I may not be able to call
Mhm.
you. Okay? So you got to let your people know. If you don't hear from me, you see that car and that license plate, do your research. Call the cops. Because that's what my friends did. And that was after he broke my phone in half. So I had no lifeline. My friends had the cognition to realize we haven't heard from her in a month. Let's go by her house. And they showed up with bricks, Vaseline, and bandanas. They were trying to come in my house. Problem was, he held me up by gunpoint and told me not to open the door because he was going to shoot them all. And he had a hunter's rifle.
Mm.
So here I am in the barricade of all of that. Okay. So with today's technology, don't be hesitant to use it. Use it. Keep you a burner
Mhm.
phone in case he breaks your phone. Keep you a burner. Keep you a couple of burners. They're cheap. And hide them. If you got to hide one at work, hide
Mhm.
it there. I'm telling you, a safety plan, a lifeline plan, and a vision to get out of your situation are key to your survival. Because the ultimate thing I am going to say to you is leave. But while you're in the midst of, while you're in the thick of it, prepare. Prepare. Because faith without works is dead.
So just to piggyback off Midori, if you're watching and you're in a domestic violence situation, a safety plan is key. The reason we tell you to develop a safety plan because there are things that you will need when you're leaving. You will need your children's and yours social security cards, birth certificates, immunization cards, um, it health, their health cards, yours, in the list of medications that you take. Um, it's so much that you need. If your children have medications, you need a list of that with the dosage. Because if you have to leave without getting your medications, there are programs that can help you get them. And, as long as you have your dosage and you know the names of them that you're actively taking. So that's important because we don't think about those things. Also, as Amadori has told you guys how to stuff money different places, definitely try to save, put money aside, especially if you know that you're leaving. As we expressed with the most organizations, we're struggling for funding. And so it shouldn't be a situation where where you can't go because the finances is not there. We definitely want to make sure that you're safe. Also, clothing, clothes. So if you have a friend that does not run their mouth, store clothing for you and your children. And I'll say to those that are listening, if someone comes to you and tell you they're in a domestic violence situation, listen because they trust you. But do not run your mouth and tell their business because you could be the reason they go back to their abuser. And you get that call or you go on social media with RIP in front of their name. So when I say this, I be so real and I be transparent because don't think that if you tell Susie and you tell her not to say anything, you're not Susie's best friend. She's going to tell her best friend and tell her best friend not to say anything. So make sure, I say to you, if you make sure it is someone that you truly trust that will not tell your business. Never tell your abuser that you're leaving them. Never tell your abuser that you're leaving them. You always act like everything is okay because if you tell them 9 out of 10, you will not make it out. I hate to give, I hate at the end of the shows I be so transparent and I have to be real. Men, don't allow your ego to stay in a place and take the abuse. You do not deserve it either. According to the Partnership Against Domestic Violence, every 9 seconds a woman is beaten. 2 out of 3 are murder victims killed by their intimate partner. 43% of all male are male victims and 75% are women. No one deserves to be beaten. Nobody deserves to die because someone cannot have them. Develop a plan. Become educated on your situation. Put money aside and do what you need to do. If for any reason you cannot remember everything that we've said here tonight, remember you're not alone. Don't feel guilty for anyone else's actions, but take place and love you and know that you are worth it. You're worth it enough that you need a safety plan so you can get out. No matter where you are, we are here to help. It don't matter which organization that you reach out to, who you reach out to. If one can't do it, we network together. We will make it happen. Don't allow funding to be the reason that you stay. Again, that's why we all network together, to let you know what we do. And as sisters with our own organizations, we will pull together for your safety. We've been there. We know how it feels. We don't want you to feel that way. We want you to feel loved. We want you to know that you're not alone and that we're in this together. So as we begin to close out, I'm going to let the ladies again um, tell you a little bit about their organizations or what organizations they are a part of. So you'll know that we're going to pull together to make this thing work for you. Again, so I'm going to start with Miss Michaela, then go to Miss Rhonda, and then Miss Midori. And then I'm going to come back and give you information about SWAT.
Well, first, I want to say thank you for having me on. My name is Michaela, and I run the Butterfly Effect for domestic violence victims and survivors. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook. I provide peer-to-peer support. I advocate for people. I guide people to shelters in the community. I also have my own podcast on Anchor.com, Radio Republic, Google.com. Where I allow survivors and other people who have nonprofit organizations to come on and give them a platform to tell their story and speak out. So that's a little bit about what I do.
Rhonda Nixon. I'm with Reawakening Life Coaching. That can be reached at www.reawakeninglc.com. I can also be reached at 252-289-1626. Again, that number is 252-289-1626. And thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah.
And my name is Midori Davidson. I am a board member with Breaking the Silence Against Domestic Violence. We are a national advocacy program. We started back in 2011 out of Colorado Springs when a young woman decided to come on Facebook to share her court experience in filing a restraining order against her boyfriend who tried to strangle her to death. And out of that testimony, the organization grew. We have a helpline as well. We also do survivor retreats for women who have been out of their abusive situation within the last 2 years, so that we could teach about holistic health care and financial literacy, and just overall create a safe haven for them to self-explore. If you have any questions at all, I can be reached at area code 704-575. I'm sorry, 574-5274. I always get the numbers mixed up. I apologize. It's a senior moment. But again, my number is 704-574-5274.
And again, SWAT information is scrolling along the bottom of your screen. But if you're in a domestic violence situation and you cannot call, but you can text, you can also text through our website. You can also text our teleline, which is 707-792-8738. You can also reach us at survivorswithatestimony.org. And so you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SWAT Inc. 2020. So again, ladies, I want to say thank you so much for joining me tonight to spread awareness. To our viewers, we thank you for tuning in. We thank you for those that are going to come back later and watch this. If you have any questions, the lady will post their information in the comments. So you will not, if you missed it, you didn't miss it, because they're going to give it to you again after this broadcast. But I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. It has been a pleasure, and you guys know that if you need SWAT for anything, just let us know. We'll be right there.
Well, Miss Vernita, it is an
Right.
honor as always to be here with you and working with you. You already know whenever you need my help, I'm in. It does not matter.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes. So thank you, ladies, so much. We're going to end this broadcast.